This is the opening shot of Severance Season 1, Episode 1, and it is perfect. I do want to make a video on the whole first scene and also on the whole first episode, but I had to start off by dedicating time to dissecting just this first moment, just this first image, because it is dripping with amazing writing stuff to talk about. So the first topic we're going to take up here is hooks. What we have an example of in this image is a clear demonstration of good confusion, meaning when you're trying to hook your audience, there's good confusion and there's bad confusion. And this first shot so clearly demonstrates exactly the kind of good confusion you need to hook your audience. I see 4 components here. Number 1 is clear elements. The components, the moving pieces of the scene, they are not confusing. What's confusing is their configuration, meaning what we're seeing is very straightforward. We got a boardroom, we got a table, a woman, a speaker. None of that is obscured, none of that is ambiguous, but when we take those components and we put them like this, a woman in nice work clothes in an empty boardroom unconscious on the table, and a speaker saying, "Who are you?" That arrangement of these simple components is what creates confusion. And in a way that specifically leads to item 2, which is questions. I mean, you could have confusion where you're just totally lost, you don't even know what to ask, but with this scene we get a powerful why question. Why are these familiar elements in this unfamiliar configuration? And then along with that, we also find ourselves asking context questions. Who is this woman? Why is she dressed like this? Who is the man speaking? Why is he asking her this? Where is he? Where is she? What is this room? So it's not just confusion where we're looking at something odd and we just don't know what to do with it. Here there's a clear feeling that context will help us answer that main question. It's confusion that feels like there's a way out of it. And that leads right into the next category, which is urgency. It's a different type of question. What's going to happen next? And that is a deceptively hard question to make your audience ask in an opening scene, because no matter what the story, if you're at the very beginning, you have to assume your audience's starting point is, I don't care about any of this. I don't know who this gal is. Why should I care what happens to her? And yeah, there's one very clear thing that's going on here, which is that she looks like a victim of something, and that does engage us emotionally, and we'll talk about that later. But the other interesting thing which is going on here that they're giving us is what I'll call a dropping shoe, like as in waiting for the other shoe to drop. And this is something which does not work through emotional engagement. It works because it creates this little dopamine cycle. There's anticipation and there's payoff. And it doesn't matter that I don't know who this woman is. It doesn't matter that I have no reason to care about her. She's asleep. Someone is talking at her. She is going to wake up. It's going to be soon, any second now. I can feel it. Our brains quickly pick up on that withholding of dopamine vehicle, and then the eventual, yes, the thing happened. Give me that dopamine. It's mine. Let me slurp it up. We just love ourselves a good, clean dopamine cycle like that. That alone engages us, and once we're engaged like that, once we're attached to what fulfills our anticipation, then we find ourselves suddenly interested in more questions. How is the shoe going to drop? When is she going to wake up? What is she going to do when she wakes up? How will she react? What will the voice guy do? And what the sense of urgency does and the accompanying engagement that we have in it is that it makes what we're confused about feel important. We don't just have questions, we have questions that we care about seeing the answers to. And component number 4 is focus.
Who are you?
Clear, understandable elements and questions and sense of urgency, those can be enough, but a pointer finger telling us what to focus on from within those elements, it doesn't hurt, it goes a long way. We have a woman on a table, but there's a lot of ways of shooting that. Here, it's framed perfectly. The shot is screaming, look at her, look at this, and wonder this.
Who are you?
And part of focus is the pointer fingers, the other part of it is the lack of clutter. Everything in the scene is pointing to Helly, and there is nothing else in the scene besides that. The cameras even zoom back clearly so you don't feel like you're missing anything. So to summarize, good confusion is built from clear elements in a perplexing configuration that prompts questions about context, and a sense of urgency, what is going to happen next, and all of that is bound together with focus. You can think of it as being about encouraging curiosity and not confusion. Wanting to know more, not feeling like you don't understand enough, being temporarily held back from understanding, not feeling utterly lost. Okay, so now we have a clear picture of how the scene hooks you. Does that mean that we're done understanding this? Of course not. It is true that this scene is a hook. That is primarily what it is. But I think like a lot of things in writing, people see hooks as like, okay, you make a scene that does the hook job, and then you get the hook effect, and then you can go on and do other story stuff. But of course, if you think about your favorite stories, your favorite scenes, you think about like pretty much anything we talked about on this channel, accomplishing one function in a scene, that's awesome, but great storytelling is layered. Great scenes have multiple functions going on simultaneously. If you want your writing to feel rich, it has to be that way. You have to consciously or unconsciously cultivate that kind of efficiency in your writing. So take a look at this image again and tell me, what else is this accomplishing besides hooking us? Forget about about the questions, forget about the mystery, just look at it. Think about how they could have started it and how they did it instead. Think about it from different elements of storytelling. Is there anything going on here in terms of plot? Is there anything going on here in terms of character, themes, tone? And granted, of course, you can't do like infinite stuff. This is just one image. But if you're starting to think about it in those categories, you can see some really brilliant maneuvering. For example, there's some pretty heavily implied conflict here. It certainly looks like this woman did not choose to be here like this. And there carries an expectation that she does not want to be here. And that is not plot yet, but by arranging the pieces in a way that results from or results in conflict, we are already setting the stage for plot. And here, yeah, it's actually with the exact conflict that's going to be central to the plot. They waste zero time in introducing that. This is a show about unseen, disconnected management controlling and trapping severed employees in awkward, oppressive office environments where they don't want to be, and that is exactly this first image. Also,
who are you?
Yes, in a plot sense, that was the first survey question, but they made the first survey question the main thematic question of the whole story. Who are you? What is identity? What part of the you is valuable as a human life? What level of compartmentalization of divide creates a new separate you? All this stuff is being primed for us by the very first words of the show. And I think perhaps the most important element here, you look at this and you notice what's absent, and it's a little counterintuitive, but there is no movement in this first image. Nothing is actually happening. They chose to start with something having happened to this character, but we don't see that. What we do see, where we do start, is the character being left on her own to decide what happens next. In other words, what the scene is built around from the very first frame is agency. Helly is going to wake up, and within these boundaries that the story has left her with, her own personality will determine where the story goes from there. And that's even stated clearly later on in multiple forms.
5 questions.
What do I get at the end?
Depends on your answers.
The trainee becomes agitated and demands to leave. Skip to page 19.
She has to ask 3 times for you to let her.
I have no choice.
Well, every time you find yourself here, it's because you chose to come back.
As controlled and trapped as the characters in the show are, the writing places a heavy value on character agency in driving the story forward, which continues throughout the entire show, but it starts from this opening scene. So similar to what we said about plot and the implied conflict not itself being plot, but already laying the foundation for the plot, here the implied agency is not itself character development, but it's laying the groundwork that will enable the very strong character development that is about to happen. That is already starting from this first shot. And of course we also got tone here as well, with the purposely awkward mix of mundane corporate building blocks, but also brutal dystopian control, the disorder and order, the exposed vulnerability and the strength of being hidden, disconnected, cut off, severed.
Hey, that's the name of the show.
And then the other major background thing going on here is that we got quite a lot of groundwork laid for symbolism as well. With this padded room that she's in and the hard table underneath her that she's waking up on, we are starting to introduce one of the most explicitly used symbols in the show, which is beds.
Oh, Rickon's colleague told us that switching out the beds as the child grows can wound that child.
Irreparably. But if you provide said child with all of its beds upon birth, you allow it to progress across the room at its own rate.
The bedroom of cure. Mark?
Yeah?
Were you about to bed sit?
Your bed will be moved from your parents' home to the Gunnell Egan Empathy Center.
I've heard people describe this image as also very womb-like, which makes sense because a new Helly is being born here, and there's a lot of emphasis in the show on birth as a symbol and a tool for discussing the life and identity questions. But the main point is don't just let your hooks be hooks. Start laying the groundwork for anything you can. If you are able to, start planting seeds for plot development and character development, start establishing important dynamics, find some way to inject your themes, shape your hooks with a strong sense of tone, integrate important symbols if you can, and really something else about making a good hook, and this is kind of cheating, but what really knocks it out of the park when you're making a great hook is to follow it up with a second great hook.
I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. Hi there. You on the table? I wonder if you'd mind taking a brief survey.
That line and that transition is nothing short of ingenious, and that is one of the things we're going to be talking about in the next video in this series, which as I mentioned earlier will be about the whole first scene. And just to give some context for my little content plan here, what I'm seeing overall from the show, which I think offers so much educationally for writers, is how to take a story idea and work with it, turn it into something more. What we saw here was largely about consolidation, which is something that you need to do when you have a big concept like Severance that you want to make a whole story around. At some point you're going to have to ask yourself, how does this whole big idea that I have, how does that translate into a single opening beat, a single opening image? And then how do you take that beat and how do you develop it into a whole opening scene? And then how do you expand that scene into an entire episode? So that is going to be the plan here. This first video was analyzing the opening image. Second video is going to be talking about the opening scene, the first 5 minutes of the show. Third video will be talking about the whole first episode. There's just so much to learn from here. And let's actually take a second and watch a little bit further in the scene.
That one makes no sense.
Right. Unknown. Question 5, and as a reminder, this is the final question.
to the best of your memory, what is or was the color of your mother's favorite pair of Raycon Everyday Earbuds? Mother's Day. Raycon. Yay. So I can say from my literal own experience, my mom bought a pair of Raycon Everyday Earbuds after my last Raycon sponsorship, and they are perfect for her. She loves them. Her favorite color for her Raycons, by the way, and mine too, was blush violet, so no dystopian corporate-induced trauma for me, thank you very much. But anyway, Raycon is doing a Mother's Day sale right now, 20% off site-wide, and that's in addition to their earbuds already costing like half the price of other premium brands. If other earbud brands haven't worked for you or for your loved ones, Raycons just fit really well in your ears. They're really comfortable. They also charge super fast. Even if you want to buy one of the fancy protective covers like I have, they still charge wirelessly, so it can be extra stylish without sacrificing functionality. And their active noise cancellation is really, really good. That's a feature that you often don't find at this price point. For me, when I'm making videos, for example, ads just like this one, I gotta chop up the audio and hear like exactly how much of a pause I want between phrases sometimes. And you can't just look at the waveforms, you have to actually like hear it. You have to hear what sounds good. And when I'm working in like a loud cafe or a park, I cannot hear it with a lot of other brands of headphones and earbuds that I have. With my Raycons, it's perfect. I can just put on the active noise cancellation. I can drown out everything I need to. So if you want to gift your mom something useful and pretty that she'll use, or you want to gift yourself something useful and pretty that you'll use, go to buyraycon.com/schnee to get 20% off site-wide. And on that note, I hope you enjoyed this video that was brought to you by Raycon. Subscribe if you like the content, support the channel on Patreon. Thank you to all of my patrons. We did a group discussion call in the first episode of Severance. It's been super helpful for this video and for the videos that you're gonna see soon. Every month we do calls picking apart random scenes together. That sounds like something you'd be interested in. We would love to have you. We would love to hear your ideas. So check out my Patreon, link in the description. I'm gonna hopefully have more Severance content for you guys soon, and that doesn't mean that I'm closing the lid on Arcane content or anything like that, but just between Severance and stuff like Last of Us Season 2, lots of content-worthy things entering the fray lately, so stay tuned for just whatever shoves its way to the forefront of my brain. Hope you all enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.